Good morning, my beautiful crime family, and welcome to Java time. Been a while, huh? Been like, I don't know, a couple, 2, 3 weeks or something. But I'm back and I'm here. And this is the one, if you guys were on the show last night, um, I mentioned that I watched this case last night, or the night before, and I couldn't stop watching. I mean, I watched it. It's really good. It's a good case. Yeah. So I thought I would share this with you guys, because I really, I mean, it's hard to like something like this that ends this way and whatever, but it is very interesting. Put it that way. It's very, very interesting. Let me say hi to my crime family, though. My good morning, my happy Java time. Michelle Cameron, good to see you, girl. Allison Wonderland, good to see you, girl. Linda O'Quinn, good to see you. Bonnie Bailey, good to see you, girl. Yeah, morning time. Been a while. Been a while. So anyway. This is a very, very, very interesting case, and I'm going to run this right now because it's that good. It is not many. They don't. It's hard to get into some of these cases, especially when I'm into the Kohlberger case so much. It's hard to get in, but now that things have slowed down so much in the Kohlberger case,
she might be in trouble.
I didn't realize you had someone in the car. And he says, "Oh, that's my."
Okay, so let's get this rolling because this is kind of a little bit long. It's about an hour long. So, okay, here we go, folks. This is good.
Conversation was cut short, and I never talked to her again.
Vanished without a trace.
She said that it was
a 33-year-old woman on a cross-country road trip disappears in rural Oklahoma.
they're pretty well known for being places where people can dump bodies and it be forever. Somebody finds them.
A tangled web in an area notorious for the missing and murdered.
It was no accident. I mean, it looked like it was put there on purpose.
The night that the car was found, did you or anyone in law enforcement do a grid search on the property?
I don't think anybody searched until the next morning.
The investigation into what happened
would end up taking our team more than a year to uncover.
It's going to be the top people that have covered it up.
Theories in a case fueled by small-town gossip and conspiracies.
His second scenario was she got out and was eaten by hogs.
As we set out to unravel the mystery
of Caitlyn Case.
I'm going to get to the bottom of it. I don't care until it takes me to the day I die.
It's a small dot on the map, a swath of tribal land along the Red River, with boggy banks and thickets full of secrets.
Our investigative team set out on a search for answers in the disappearance of Caitlyn Case. She had been missing for months, and her case had grown cold.
What followed was a multi-year investigation that started on a dead-end, dirt-lined road in far southeastern Oklahoma.
Here's Lisa Monahan with Missing Case.
She came across the river into Oklahoma. And we've had several missing persons.
Seems like there's a lot of weird stuff going on.
With its vast expanse of land, lakes, and rivers, it's easy to get lost in the beauty of southeast Oklahoma. Unfortunately, it seems just as easy to be lost there, especially in Choctaw County.
People come up missing in this area. Something needs to be done.
It's hard to say precisely how many have gone missing.
Especially women being abducted.
Since authorities, local and state, provide conflicting information on these cases or refuse to name the missing at all.
They're real good at hiding things here.
According to national crime records, 8 people have vanished in this sparsely populated county in just 2 years' time. One of them was Caitlyn Case.
It's heartbreaking. We talked all the time.
Hey, Pop. It's Katie. Call me back when you get this.
On a road trip from her hometown of Houma, Louisiana to Black Hawk, Colorado, Caitlyn went off the grid somewhere on the back roads of Texas. It was August 5th, 2022.
We were on the phone.
Hey, Pop.
The conversation was getting weak. I couldn't understand what she was saying because of it.
Caitlyn's father, Gordon, says the dropped call didn't seem significant at that moment, but
there was nothing ever again. It's rough. You're talking to someone that you love, and and all of a sudden they're gone.
Then lost, Gordon says, in the investigation marred by missteps and misconduct, one that reveals a potential crack in the system big enough for more people like Caitlyn to fall through. It is why we spent months looking into what happened and what didn't happen, starting with the first break in the case, a week after Caitlyn's disappearance.
I get a phone call from Caitlyn's father, Gordon.
Gordon told Hugo Detective Billy Jenkins about a ping on his Find My Phone app that led him down a lonely road just north of Highway 109 to a private ranch near the Kiamichi River.
They had located the phone, they believed. And he said it's behind this locked gate.
Jenkins says he rushed there to help.
We drove past the home and into the property proper. We went through the cattle guards, past the barns, and we began to walk the river.
An hour into the search,
Gordon starts hollering that he's found the car. I found her. I was like, oh, great.
There, at the bottom of a rolling hill, cradled between 2 trees and hanging above the riverbank, sat Caitlyn's car. Clearly, it had wrecked, but was it an accident or an intentional, perhaps criminal act?
Someone was attempting to throw it in the river to get rid of it.
But nothing in the car could confirm Gordon's suspicions of foul play.
The car's empty. The car is empty. There's nobody, nothing, no sign of anybody.
No blood, no signs of a struggle. There were, however, several of her personal belongings: phones, credit cards, ID, and most concerning, her clothes and shoes, including what she'd been wearing in the hours before her disappearance.
At that point, we notified the OSBI that, hey, we found this vehicle.
The OSBI took over the case and quickly determined, through surveillance video and cell tower data, that Caitlyn's car ended up in its final resting spot by the river a few hours after her last communication with her father.
And I've never heard from her ever again.
Theories vary as to what happened to Caitlyn, but one popular with investigators is that she walked away from the crash and hitchhiked out of town.
My daughter would have never done like that. And she didn't have any shoes. She didn't have any clothes. We found all that in her vehicle.
Gordon is also skeptical of another investigator's suggestion that she may have survived the crash, but was then eaten by wild hogs.
They wouldn't be able to find a trace of her if she was torn to pieces. That's what he told. He told.
This is another one of these, you have to wonder about the law enforcement, Why is this like happening everywhere in the United States? Is it that we just hear about it more now, or is it this bad? I'll keep it going here.
Caitlyn's mother.
Gordon began questioning the competence of the investigators.
I was thinking that I had people that were going to actually do something, get involved and handle this and take it serious. But that was far from the case.
Any efforts made by the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation remain as much a mystery as Caitlyn's disappearance. The OSBI has repeatedly denied our request for even the most general information. From what we've been able to piece together, the handling of the potential crime scene could explain why law enforcement is unwilling to open up about the investigation. Collectively, law enforcement believes she's walked away from the vehicle. There was some sort of crash, so maybe she's even disoriented. Detective Jenkins is the only law enforcement officer so far who's been willing to discuss the initial investigation with us. He's been involved from day one, but was never in charge. Did anyone that evening look in the nearby barn in case she crawled to safety to the barn?
I know they did. I'm not sure if they looked that evening or if it was the next day.
The night that the car was found, did you or anyone in law enforcement do a grid search for Caitlyn from the car out on the property?
By the time we got the vehicle out, it was dark. It wouldn't have been feasible at that point to find anybody or anything. I don't think anybody searched until the next morning, to tell you the truth.
And law enforcement had nothing to do with that search. It was Gordon out there leading a group of volunteers.
They searched the property, and they come up with nothing.
Eventually, authorities did search the property, but not until the following week, and say they too found not a trace of evidence. But time matters in a missing person case because evidence fades, and so can the memories of potential witnesses. The night that this occurred, do you recall seeing anything outside your property on this road before it entered the Harrington property?
No, I did not see it.
Talking with neighbors last summer, we also asked if their security cameras captured anything unusual the night of the crash. But nearly a year later, there was little chance any video would still exist, unless investigators pulled it immediately after the car was found.
I'm going to make this statement because it's going to mean something to you. Not one officer of any kind ever come to my house and ask me anything about what I seen.
If investigators had asked, the neighbor says he would have told them about his involvement in the search and what he overheard the property owners say about a possible sighting of a second car on the property.
They asked her, "Did you get license plate number?" She said, "No, it's going so fast. I didn't have time for that. All I seen was a taillight leaving out."
If that's true, it means Caitlyn wasn't alone. How did a witness who was at the scene get overlooked? Are there others? And what does it say about the thoroughness of the overall investigation? Any statements from the scene lie deep in the files that OSBI refuses to share with us. So we went straight to the source.
We heard the dogs. I'd walked outside and felt pretty certain that it was a vehicle leaving the property, as far as there being dust in the air and then hearing a vehicle leaving. So I don't know for a fact that's what I saw. It was really dark. All you could see was dust. It was probably closer to 11 o'clock at night.
Could you tell which way the dust was going? Like, was it leaving
the
the property?
was leaving the property.
The owners are reluctant to say much more for fear of retaliation amidst ongoing criticism in this case.
I think they're covering it up.
The Harringtons are prominent landowners in the county. Gordon and others believe they're using connections with law enforcement to conceal their involvement in Caitlyn's disappearance, an accusation the Harringtons vehemently deny. So far, there's little evidence to support the allegation, and to show they have nothing to hide, they invited us to look around the property, which we did. Found 2 more pieces of the car down there. The fact that we easily found parts of Caitlyn's car underscored nagging concerns about the thoroughness of the OSBI investigation, while our own investigation had us trying to pick up any breadcrumbs of evidence from the route she'd taken.
Whenever she saw me coming, she just took off at a high rate of speed,
leading to potentially critical new discoveries.
As we delve deeper into this mysterious disappearance, the haunting last image of Caitlyn, and the startling connection to her hometown.
She said that she was trying to get away from a bad person.
Plus, our team talks with a new witness who swears she saw Caitlyn not once, but twice.
On August 12th, 2022, 1 week into Caitlyn Case's disappearance, the phone rang. It was just before 7 p.m. at Choctaw County Dispatch.
Yes, sir.
Hi. I need you to take some notes here.
An unusual time for tragic news to come calling.
Caitlyn Case, the missing girl from Louisiana, has been found off of 109 at Frogville and goes south on 4340 Road.
Hugo Police Chief John Mitchell was on the line with a potential break in the case.
OSBI, everybody's down there. But it's going to be a fatality car crash, and she's inside the vehicle.
It had taken a full week to find Caitlyn Case's car crashed on a private ranch at the end of that dusty dead-end road a couple miles off Highway 109.
We're getting close to the sewing this up, right? So we go up to the vehicle.
Investigators thought this would be case closed, but what they were about to discover only deepened the mystery.
Long story short, the car's empty.
Caitlyn was still missing.
We don't know exactly what we have at that point.
For Caitlyn's father, Gordon, the disappointing discovery pushed his mind to a dark place. He began wondering if perhaps someone had abducted Caitlyn. Was she being held captive somewhere? Was she dead? In despair and disbelief, he checked the car for himself.
Everything she owned was in it. Her phones, her clothing, everything she packed, her tools. A lot of stuff.
The only thing missing was a strong lead. Still, there were clues. Caitlyn's jeans were inside out, wrapped around the car's center console. A haunting image that left Gordon with a nagging feeling that something very bad happened to his daughter.
Every day it's rough.
It's okay, take your time. I know it's tough.
Someone did this to her.
Whoever did it, Gordon says, had plenty of time to cover their tracks because of what he says were investigative failures at every level. The Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, Choctaw County Sheriff's Office, and Hugo Police.
They never processed this as a crime scene from day one. They never roped it off, taped it off, kept people from going back. It was day.
If they had, he says they might have found footprints or other evidence that could have helped determine what happened to Caitlyn. The processing of the car, he says, was no better.
There's no DNA either. But they only swabbed the steering wheel and the shifter.
From the looks of it, investigators tore apart the car, determined to find something, but Gordon says they came up empty-handed.
There was no fingerprints in the vehicle at all.
Other than Caitlyn's. The OSBI lifted 2 viable fingerprints from the rearview mirror, and a partial palm print was located on the front passenger window, but it didn't generate any useful information. Investigators were coming up with their own theories, and word was getting out around town.
After the car had been processed and stuff, he said they found drugs and drug paraphernalia. And
did they state an amount of drugs?
No, he did not.
A drug pipe was found wrapped in a blue bandana underneath the car, but forensic testing never determined if it was Caitlyn's. The evidence was non-conclusive, but Gordon insists.
There was no drugs in the vehicle. We know that from day one.
He'll admit his daughter had struggled with meth, but says she was putting that behind her.
She just wanted to get her life back on track.
Which is why she was driving from Louisiana to Colorado in the first place.
She got mixed up with some bad characters and was dabbling in things she shouldn't have been.
Poor choices in her early 20s and 30s led to several run-ins with the law, DUIs, drug possession, and resisting arrest before she went to rehab and moved to Colorado. Caitlyn was 3 months sober and by all accounts on the right path when she flew back to Louisiana July 31st to buy a car. Her father expected she'd turn right around and drive back to her new life.
She was procrastinating. She was hanging out with some of those bad characters, and it made me very mad.
Gordon says it took some convincing, but Caitlyn began the journey back to the mountains August 4th, 2022. She made it as far as Gainesville, Texas, before apparently having second thoughts. Surveillance cameras at a roadside gas station captured one of the last images of Caitlyn as she stopped to FaceTime with a friend for more than an hour. One her family says was from her former drug circle. It's not clear what was said, but Caitlyn began backtracking toward Louisiana after that.
She said her GPS got hacked, which we know that didn't happen.
Caitlyn was lost. By noon, August 5th, Gordon was on the phone trying to help her navigate the back roads, sending screenshots of his atlas with specific instructions.
I had circled everywhere she needed to call me when she got to that point.
The consistent check-ins were to assure him that Caitlyn remained on track. They spoke in Mount Pleasant, Texas, as she headed toward Bogota, a place Gordon now sees as a turning point, literally and figuratively.
The best I can think is that happened is that she encountered somebody that she trusted.
Because when Caitlyn left Bogota, she deviated from her intended route. We started digging around to find out who she might have crossed paths with at the local businesses. Before long, we were given a name and found a number for a potential witness.
She said she had just left from down there. So I don't know if she meant Louisiana, Shreveport.
The woman vividly recalled her encounter with a woman she believes was Caitlyn.
She acted like she was really scared.
Melanie Cherry was working the register at a store in Bogota when she says Caitlyn came inside needing help.
She was in a bad way. She was trying to get away from a bad person. So I asked her, like, is he out there? Is he with you? And she said no. He was not with her, but she was afraid he was following her.
Then, seeing her react nervously to the engine of a passing truck, Cherry says she offered Caitlyn a safe place in the store.
She said no. She was kind of afraid that he might see her vehicle and come in there.
Cherry says Caitlyn then left the store abruptly in a white SUV, not her black Envoy, but returned shortly after with an even more heightened sense of urgency.
She said that she had to get away and she needed to get someplace far away.
Caitlyn made a second swift departure from the store. By this time, Gordon was concerned. It was after 5 p.m., and Caitlyn should have made it to their next checkpoint. So he gave her a call.
She was already past Bogota, obviously, and down in that Cunningham Solar area on a back road going nowhere. And to be that calm and not tell me, Papa, I'm lost, you know, or be concerned where she was. She absolutely wasn't concerned at all.
He couldn't have known it then, but that call would be their last. As Caitlyn made a wrong turn onto a gravel road, an 8-mile loop around a solar farm, the call with her father dropped, and she never made a call again. In hindsight, Gordon wonders if she was following someone. Someone was following her, or worse, someone was already in the car. Caitlyn spent nearly 2 hours in the solar farm, but it's not clear what she did there. We tried to fill in the time gap, starting with the witness who claimed Caitlyn pulled into his driveway just after 6 p.m. on August 5th. Zach Smith wasn't home when we stopped by, so we spoke on the phone. Security cameras notified him of our arrival, but he says they weren't working the night in question.
The internet wasn't working at that time. Dogs started barking. By the time I opened the door, she had I guess gassed it and hit that embankment right there to get back on the road.
Smith went after her.
Anyway, I got her to stop. She when his road down. She seemed kind of scared.
He says she looked like she hadn't slept in days, so he asked if she was lost or in need of help.
She said she was fine, didn't want me to call anybody. And then she told me that she was working with the guys that were cutting hay. And at that time, I was like, okay, you know, maybe she's got a legit reason to be here.
But the statement raises legitimate questions. Caitlyn had never cut hay before and wasn't a part of a hay cutting crew. There were some crews working on the solar farm, but based on our reconstruction of her route, her encounter with Zach Smith took place before she drove around the solar farm, before she would have seen the hay cutters. So why would she have said that? Was she communicating with one of the guys cutting hay? We continued around the solar farm loop just as she did.
I couldn't understand why she come to Cunningham start with. It's just the solar panels, there's lots of workers here.
Like so many we've met, he was careful about what he said and asked us to conceal his identity. He says the solar farm has brought on scores of workers, such that the people installing panels outnumber the people who live here.
And there's lots and lots of workers here, and I don't know if she knew any of them.
It's possible. Kiewit Corporation was the contractor for the solar farm at the time.
I don't know what going on. I don't know nothing about the case.
Which a quick search of the internet showed has an office in Caitlyn's hometown of Houma, Louisiana. It's possible she knew someone working in the area.
Development keeps up with every landowner, keeps up with every person that they allow to do hate cutting.
We asked the company to review its security cameras to see who, if anyone, she may have encountered or met up with on their property.
You all set? Thanks, sir.
They declined our request. With only a digital footprint to follow, we tried to clarify the timing of her movements by talking with neighbors.
What was her name again?
It's Caitlyn.
Case. Caitlyn Rose Case.
Anyone else live here with you that?
Well, they're all gone at this moment.
Possible sightings by residents suggest a timeline significantly different from the one investigators created based on Caitlyn's cell phone records.
Like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, that somebody had seen her. I don't know it.
Does this sound familiar? You know what I mean? It really sounds familiar to me. Why is this happening all over the United States? I don't get it. I really don't get it.
It was her, but I know I got a person that come to my door the same night, the last time I seen her.
Cell data suggests Caitlyn left the solar farm by 7 p.m., or at the very least, her car and phones did, because within the next hour, her phone connected to Wi-Fi about 10 miles away to the northwest. We checked with the Lamar County Sheriff for any reports of Caitlyn's car after that and found this.
Hello.
Yes, Mr. Ray.
Yes.
Hey, Deputy Van Sheriff at Lamar County Sheriff's Office.
A report of suspicious activity from near Jennings, Texas, which it happens is about 10 miles northwest of Cunningham. It was just after sunset, 8:36 p.m., August 5th.
My dispatcher briefed me on about the vehicle that was in front of your property there.
I've got the license plate and description of the vehicle. It's a Louisiana plate, 957.
The landowner, Ray Roberts, then said this about the driver.
She was really dangerous. I mean, she's whacked out on something, or just really, really afraid of being found out about something. I guarantee you that, because she was running through people's lawns and jumping ditches, and I mean, just crazy stuff.
Roberts hadn't immediately called 911. He followed the car through Jennings to Paris before turning around. He reported the incident about a half hour after the fact.
He said, I couldn't even stay with her because she was driving so fast.
Pursuing this lead, Hugo Detective Billy Jenkins followed the information across state lines to interview Roberts.
At this point, we think he's the only person that had actually laid eyes on her.
And Jenkins learned he'd actually gone a step further.
He said, I took my phone out and I took a picture of her, which he had with him. So there's a photo of this young missing lady, and she's alone in the vehicle.
The photo isn't clear, but Robert's own recollection of the driver was fairly detailed. When a year later, we asked him about his initial statements to investigators.
I told him that I thought it might have been a female, but I couldn't be certain, and possibly tattoos on the arm.
Caitlyn did have tattoos, but not on her arms. The dragonfly on her left foot, dragon on her rib cage, and triangle on her back would have been essentially impossible for Roberts to see, raising the question of how he knew about her tattoos, or whether it was someone else behind the wheel. A tenuous lead, but when we followed to Ray Roberts' doorstep.
She saw me coming, she just took off at a high rate of speed, like a bat out of hell. And
man,
just,
I mean, we're from Louisiana.
That was about it.
Oh, really? You're from Louisiana too?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, and
I don't want to get into all of this.
If it was anything more than pure coincidence that Caitlyn, with her Louisiana roots, showed up on the property of another Louisianan at the end of a rural dead-end road in Texas, Roberts didn't give us the chance to ask.
it's rolling for safety purposes, yes.
Well, no, you're going to have to.
Okay. Okay.
What seemed like a dead end would end up leading our team down a completely new road. Still ahead, we uncover a potentially critical oversight.
An uninvestigated report leading to a crucial gap in Caitlyn's whereabouts.
back on the trail that we'd been running down for months. We noticed Caitlyn's driving patterns, if in fact she was the one behind the wheel, became more unpredictable after her car reached Paris.
She didn't drive directly to Paris, obviously. She went, up and down back roads for whatever reason. There's really no way of knowing what she was thinking.
Through data state investigators have turned over to Caitlyn's family and which they have given to us, we know that her phones pinged to nearly a dozen Wi-Fi locations around Paris between 8:40 and 9:30 that night, including heavily frequented areas, even the city's most iconic landmark.
The oddity of that is that she didn't have any interaction with law enforcement. She wasn't pulled over. She wasn't questioned. She wasn't asked, why are you on this parking lot at 3 o'clock in the morning? Are you okay?
The car then traveled on an unknown path toward Oklahoma. For more than an hour, her phones went undetected. Not one hit was made to a cell tower or Wi-Fi connection in the 50 miles to the state line. We couldn't account for the time gap due to our investigative limitations. If the OSBI was able to fill in the blank, they were not sharing it with us. The agency denied our every request for information, including questions about its social media post within a week of Caitlyn's disappearance. In August 2022, the OSBI expressed concern someone other than Caitlyn was in control of the vehicle as it entered Oklahoma. It's not known if investigators have come to any conclusion as to who was driving. We do know, courtesy of phone data from the family, once in Oklahoma, her car traveled east on Highway 109.
911, what's the emergency?
Before it turned down a rural road toward the Red River.
We live out here in Frogville, and there's somebody that's on drugs or drunk or something. We live down here in the middle of nowhere, and they were out in our cow pasture just ripping around.
A few minutes before 11 p.m., at least 2 neighbors called police to report a suspicious, potentially dangerous driver.
They're hitting the brakes, slowing down, speeding up, about hit the fence.
Then suddenly, according to one caller, the car changed course and sped across the highway, ignoring the stop sign and racing toward the Kiamichi River.
I'm going to say they're in pretty bad shape.
Okay, I'll let them know.
All right, thanks.
Unfortunately, we discovered Choctaw County never dispatched anyone that night. It's not clear why, but we were told the dispatcher was only reprimanded and still handles emergency calls for the county. Whether neglecting to send an officer to investigate was malicious or an innocent mistake, it not only had potential consequences for whoever was in the car, it also complicated the investigation in the early stages.
So I was looking for Lisa Monahan with News 9.
Okay.
Been trying to get in touch with you. I know there were a couple of 911 calls that from there on 4340 Road, I believe it was suspicious activity, driving through a pasture. Does any of this sound familiar to you?
I have heard that.
But that didn't come into your office or to your dispatch?
Not to my knowledge, no ma'am.
So
if there was, then there would be some type of report on it, but there's nothing that I know of that we even made a report on. I mean, it went straight from Hugo Police Department to the OSBI.
Choctaw County Sheriff Terry Park acknowledged all agencies route their calls through his communication center, which serves as a central hub for coordinating assistance in the county. But he could not account for the oversight.
When that case came in, the Hugo Police Department, why them? It wasn't even their jurisdiction. Well, really, I don't know whose jurisdiction, but they took it, whatever little bit they might have done, and then the OSBI took over. I don't even know if we even made a report.
If anyone in law enforcement had actually been dispatched when the calls came into the Choctaw County Communication Center, they might have been able to intercept the driver.
They've been at this for a while.
A possibility that's certainly not lost on Caitlyn's father.
We don't know who was in that vehicle. We don't know if my daughter was dead or alive in that vehicle, or she was being taken up to the other property where they dumped the vehicle and being murdered. We never would know that because the 911 call was never put out to any dispatch to go out there and look into this.
Over the course of the investigation, I have routinely checked in with Gordon via FaceTime to let him know what we've found and to get his thoughts. I know that you've been personally investigating this to the best of your ability, being so many states away, but what at this point do you think happened to Caitlyn?
They are totally responsible because they could have stopped something possibly that could have stopped this from even happening.
A critical 44-minute lapse occurred between the witness reporting the car near the Red River and the eventual crash opposite the highway at the Kiamichi River.
So I believe that they tried to take that vehicle down to the Red River just south of the 109, and they couldn't get access to that river.
That is one possible explanation. When looking at digital maps, North 4340 Road appears to run close to the Red River, when in reality it doesn't. A view from above the area reveals the road stops short of the river. Traveling the opposite direction, however, the road runs straight to the Kiamichi.
Didn't end up on that property for no reason. They knew exactly where to launch that vehicle, exactly where to go behind that only place on the property with a hill.
If true, who did it and why? Perhaps someone on 4340 Road got a look at the driver.
I never seen the car. My neighbors down here, they said they went out in their pasture. Somebody didn't know who it was. They were driving all around in circles out there in the pasture, hitting in the cow hole.
Residents couldn't say for sure and provided no evidence to show Caitlyn was actually in the car that night. But they did provide information pointing to a remarkable chain of errors, incompetence, and oversight. Not only did investigators fail to follow up with known witnesses in the area, no one, according to neighbors, had ever searched the pasture where her car was last seen. So we did what law enforcement hadn't done: scour the pastures for any sign of Caitlyn or any potential evidence that might have been tossed from the car.
A turning point in the investigation found at the end of a long and dusty road, and the legal wrangling it took for our team to get there. A missing case returns.
The truth waits patiently to be discovered in the year-long search for Caitlyn Case.
Her parents say to this point, the investigation could be summarized by overlooked leads and potential negligence by law enforcement. One oversight may actually hold the key to unraveling Caitlyn's disappearance.
Here once again, Lisa Monahan.
With the year-long mystery still unfolding along the river's edge, critical questions were surfacing.
Well, thanks.
Why hadn't anyone searched the pasture where witnesses last reported seeing her car less than an hour before it was abandoned?
I never seen nobody in there.
Okay.
No agents.
Just because law enforcement hadn't searched the pasture didn't mean we couldn't. To salvage any evidence that was possibly tossed from the car that night or buried there, a year later, we'd need more than an investigative eye. It would take a well-trained nose. We brought in Justice, a canine specially trained to detect clandestine graves.
The chemical compounds of human decomposition are so unique that the dog is able to identify that. The thing about odor is odor arises. If a body's buried 6 feet deep and it's decomposed for a long time, that odor will surface to the top, whether it be through water or if there was a dead animal buried on top of a person. The dog is able to tell the different chemical compounds. That's just how sensitive they are.
Justice explored the area beyond this well-trodden path to the river, scouring the thick brush and checking along the property line with no luck. But word of our investigation spread, and pretty soon we were following leads in nearly every direction. The first was roughly 15 miles away.
It's this dead-end little road right across the border.
Roebuck Lake is just off Highway 271 near the Choctaw Casino, a spot known to the locals as a hotbed for criminal activity.
It's been treated like a public lake, and it has been the site, I fear, of many girls being abused for many years.
Stacy Harley says her family owns the lake, but a county road allows the public to access it in a secluded area.
You go down there, there's spent condoms, needles, girls' club.
She's been trying to get the county to close that road for years, but says the requests are often met with indifference. So she's trying to police it herself.
It looks pretty good, though.
On August 9th, 2022, 4 days after Caitlyn disappeared, Stacy took video of an inconspicuous car, then approached the male driver.
A female reared up in the back of the seat behind him and could barely hold herself up.
Unaware of Caitlyn's disappearance at the time, Stacy says she questioned the driver, thinking whoever the woman was, she might be in trouble.
I didn't realize you had someone in the car. And he says, "Oh, that's my wife." I said, well, she doesn't look very well.
Stacy says she immediately notified authorities, but they didn't take her seriously. She's not sure why, but thinks it could be because she'd been embroiled in a water rights dispute concerning Roebuck Lake with, coincidentally, the same people who own the property where Caitlyn's car was found. Stacy is now convinced the woman in the car was Caitlyn. There's no other evidence to support that conclusion, but Stacy's story certainly suggests that personal grudges and legal entanglements may have played a role in the oversight of potentially critical information.
If they're all going to say that this is what happened and Stacy's crazy and not credible, then okay then. What about the other people that are missing around here? How many more do you want to look for while you're here?
Most people just turn right around, and like he was here 7 minutes, which isn't long either. And people know that people have cameras on their place.
For now, we remain focused on Caitlyn case and another possibly overlooked lead.
There's not any reason to come down this road unless you're coming to my place, basically, because that's the only thing down at the end of it.
We arrived at this potential connection between Caitlyn's disappearance and another highly publicized missing person.
I had a guy show up in a van on my camera.
It was August 6th, the morning after Caitlyn went missing, when a trail camera on Jerry Ritchie's property about 15 miles south of Paris captured something out of the ordinary. This unknown man in a white van drove down a seemingly private road, past the cornfields, and right up to his gate.
He was at the gate for about 7 minutes, and then, he pulled up, got out, apparently walked up to the gate.
The gate is just out of the camera's view, so it's not clear what the man was doing there. Ritchie says he didn't give it much thought until 2 weeks later, when he saw the OSBI's Facebook post asking for any video along Caitlyn's route.
The time frame is unusual, that this guy shows up the day after this lady went missing.
Ritchie says he immediately sent the information to the OSBI, but never heard back.
So we got to, investigate and all we could, and we decided after that we would come out and look. This is 2 weeks later.
Ritchie and his family didn't notice anything unusual, but with no official search by police, they were concerned and consequently sent the tip to Caitlyn's family.
We just thought we would try to help because there's been other people come up missing in this area.
The first case that came to his mind was Allie Burris, a young woman who vanished in 2015 while traveling Highway 271 in the same area of Texas. The cases were eerily similar. 2 hours of her travel went unaccounted for before Burris became lost in a remote area, crashed her car, and called 911 for help.
Be advised, I'm on 911 with a young lady who's had a 1050 major. She's not sure of her location. It's going to be somewhere off of 1924. Her phone's pinging in the middle of a field. She advised all she can see is fields at this time.
The search teams eventually found the car abandoned in a cornfield, but no Allie. A month earlier, she had filed a lawsuit against local law enforcement, which proceeded despite her having vanished. 2 years later, a jury ruled in the officer's favor. And then strangely, within a few months, Allie's remains turned up in an area that had previously been searched. The coroner was unable to determine how she died.
It seemed like there's a lot of weird stuff going on.
Apparently, law enforcement didn't look into Johnny Hall's tip either, which he also sent in 2 weeks after Caitlyn went missing. The same day, the OSBI posted her missing person flyer.
And I looked at the flyer and told my wife, I said, I've seen this lady before, and I was dead positive. I knew that was her. I mean, it was the beauty mark on her face give it away.
Hall says he reported a possible sighting of Caitlyn in a white SUV at a gas station in Paris, Texas, during the early hours of August 17th, 2022, almost 2 weeks after she went missing. But no one followed up.
We'd seen a white SUV broke down, and in the passenger side seat, there was a young lady that was crying. And when the two other ladies that was with her approached us and asked if we'd had jumper cables.
Their car trouble, he says, put him face to face with the distressed woman.
Said, I don't know what you're going through, but it can't be all that bad. Just keep your head up and keep going. And the two ladies that was with her said, oh, she's fine. She's just going through some things right now, and car's messed up, and she's a long way from home.
Both would have been true for Caitlyn, but he says the other women didn't give her a chance to speak. In hindsight, Hall believes the woman was Caitlyn Case and she was being held against her will.
I tried to call the number that's on there, the OSBI, but no one ever, I guess after hours, nobody answered the phone.
Hall says he had to call several more times before finally getting to speak to an agent who then questioned his credibility.
He just said, you know, like everything I would tell him. You sure you saw her? You're 100% positive. And I said, yes, sir, I did see her.
He says investigators never took an official statement from him and didn't ask for a description of the two other women. He says one was blonde, one brunette, both about 5'7", in their 30s, and with visible tattoos.
One of them was tattooed on the shoulder and around the neck area, like maybe some Old English, but I couldn't read it.
Hall also described distinct tattoos on the second woman.
They were just random, little knick-knack like cat print, you know, little footprint, deer print.
The tattoos could be significant since the witness in the last confirmed sighting of Caitlyn's car described the driver as having visible tattoos, which Caitlyn does not. Hall's description of a white SUV also checks back to the store clerk's description in Bogota, less than 20 miles away. Remember, she saw Caitlyn leave in a white SUV after asking for help getting away from someone. Not to mention, two cars were said to be involved when her car crashed. Hall's information could have helped authorities identify and question the women he saw in a white SUV, even if it was only to rule them out. The family questioned investigators as to why they failed to follow up on leads in this case.
That OSBI officer decided to say, oh, no, well, they're not credible because it was way too long after the fact. The people didn't even know about it until OSBI announced it on the bulletin, and that was on the 19th of August. And that same day, those people contacted OSBI through email.
This is the bulletin he's referring to, a post on the OSBI's Facebook page. More than a year passed without any updates to it, so as we routinely do, we asked the OSBI for an update, specifically whether investigators still believe, as they indicated in the post, that someone other than Caitlyn was driving her car when she crossed into Oklahoma. With the public's interest in mind, we also asked for any updated information on her route, stops, and interactions. All requests were denied.
You know OSBI's policy with an open case, we don't have to tell you nothing. It's very convenient for them, isn't it?
While the OSBI is exempt from releasing records from an open case, we also asked for more general information about other people who had recently gone missing in Choctaw County. Who were they, and was anyone looking for them? We were given just a number, 8 people in a relatively short amount of time, which seems like a lot for such a rural area. We wanted to compare that with the state's other counties, but our request for that information was denied once again. Here's the OSBI's statement. The OSBI has received your questions regarding both the disappearance of Caitlyn Case and the more general information you were asking about regarding OSBI's ongoing missing persons investigations. Unfortunately, the type of information required to answer these questions would require the OSBI to disclose details about the investigation that are not subject to disclosure under state law. It would seem the public's not allowed to track the missing in Oklahoma, much less track those whose responsibility it is, which calls into question how they're being held accountable.
That's kind of disturbing, don't you think? I mean, they don't have to they don't have to report. I mean, there's something wrong with that picture, especially like with all the trafficking that's going on now. And I mean, something doesn't make sense there. Something is really off.
Last summer, we asked the Choctaw County Sheriff's Office for reports on the missing and murdered, specific 911 calls, and related dispatch logs, all things open and available to anyone under state law. Months passed. Follow-up calls, emails, and even texts to the sheriff were never returned. And when we dropped by his office...
Are you the lady who wanted something, a report? Or
yeah, I'm looking for the original information.
Go in there and ask him. I don't think there was a report, period.
No reports.
Still nothing. And Gordon Case didn't find it funny at all.
When is somebody going to put their foot down and say, I've had enough, right? I mean, enough is enough. And it's not just my child. I'm speaking for every family out there going through what I'm going through. This is not right, and something needs to be done about it.
General.
See, it reminds you of somebody. Pretty much the same thing. Steve is going through. This is a missing person, but it's the same kind of thing. Not getting information from the police department or any of the agencies. This is crazy.
How may I direct your call?
It wasn't until we asked the Oklahoma Attorney General to step in and help that Choctaw County finally complied with the law. The county turned over hundreds of calls and records, a 5-month process that uncovered more problems.
You're going to go south on North 4340.
We learned the county's 911 recording system wasn't always working in the days leading up to Caitlyn's last sightings. Missing persons reports didn't consistently state if a case was still open or closed. Dispatcher call logs seemed incomplete, and there was not a single official report detailing local law enforcement's search for Caitlyn or the recovery of her car.
I think the problem is that these areas are so rural that law enforcement in those areas think that they can absolutely do whatever they want because nobody is watching them.
We received the records one day, revealing errors, and the very next day brought a more startling find.
It's a story News 9 broke last night after human remains were discovered near the Kiamichi River in Choctaw County, just a stone's throw from where Caitlyn Case's car was found last August.
Was Caitlyn there the whole time? Still ahead, the new twist in the tangled web along the riverbank.
Human remains were discovered near the Kiamichi River in Choctaw County, just a stone's throw from where Caitlyn Case's car was found last August.
News 9's Lisa Monahan has been investigating her disappearance for months.
The discovery of human remains in 2023, a potentially major development, happened one day after authorities had been forced to release the case records we had invested months of legal wrangling trying to get. The timing was either an unusual coincidence, or as Caitlyn's father Gordon believes, too unusual to be a coincidence.
You know what's very suspicious is that only a day after or so after the pressure's on, now we have a body. Don't you think that's a little bit odd? And all this time gone by, over a year, and all of a sudden now you've got a little bit of heat, and oh, wow, look, we've got a body.
A rancher riding horseback October 13th on the property just across the river, about a half mile from where Caitlyn's car was discovered in August 2022, noticed what looked like part of a human skull and called police. In a further search of the area, investigators located more remains, a tattered bra and shorts.
I think they thought, number one, if we found it, it would pretty much crush us, and we would maybe lay off a little bit.
To Gordon, it seemed too calculated and left him questioning the credibility of this sudden revelation.
I said from day one that they were going to have to bring her there at some point. They were going to have to find her in that area to make their story come true.
Law enforcement had long been pushing the theory that Caitlyn crashed her car and then escaped into the dark depths of the heavily wooded area, leaving behind her shoes, wallet, and phones.
But you know what? We're not going to believe that. I don't believe that for 1 minute.
If the remains were Caitlyn's and weren't placed there by someone trying to cover up a crime, investigators would have to be able to explain how. After crashing her car, Caitlyn, barefoot, made a difficult descent down the 40-foot embankment, swam across the river, climbed up the other side, and made it several hundred yards before collapsing in a hayfield, just short of a nearby house.
It's just nonsense. This never happened. No, they planted her there after the fact. I don't know if it was days after, months after, but either way, she didn't do this on her own.
Gordon has no proof of his allegations. The Oklahoma State Medical Examiner was able to prove through dental records that however they got there, the remains were those of his daughter, Caitlyn. One mystery solved, Caitlyn was no longer missing, but another mystery only made deeper. What happened to Caitlyn? How did she die? And had she been in the pasture all along just begging for a proper search? In 2022, within a week of Caitlyn's disappearance, investigators supposedly searched the river and land in the area, telling the parents they'd looked at every level with drones, boats, and on foot.
I walk the river as best you can. There's places where you can't get too close because it's dangerous.
Detective Billy Jenkins' earlier statements about the river search take on new significance since the discovery of Caitlyn on the opposite side, raising questions as to how she could have crossed it after the car accident that night and without leaving any trail behind.
No footprints in the sand, no footprints in the mud. There was nothing that would point to anybody being. That doesn't mean that somebody didn't go in the water.
From the air, even across the river, the chances of spotting someone or something seemed higher. How would the drones have missed Caitlyn if she'd been there all along? One possible explanation, the skull was found on the property line.
Sheriff's Department, no FBI, they had asked me to let them in, and I let them in. That's all I did.
Landowners on both sides of the fence refused to discuss the discovery, let alone acknowledge it even happened.
You didn't find the skull? No. Do you know who did?
I didn't even know if it was a skull found or what. I ain't heard anybody found it. All I heard saying was cops. That's it.
Without access to their private property, it was difficult to understand how no one found Caitlyn there for more than a year. We gained a little insight from speaking with a neighbor by phone about the discovery.
She don't go there at all. She just happened to be riding the horses because this year we had they needed to excavate. They cut that field there, where that skull was. They had put the field here.
Uncut until the summer of 2023. It's plausible the high grass had hidden Caitlyn's body all that time. But who cut the hay? And as implausible as it might seem, could there be a connection to Caitlyn's mysterious detour through the Cunningham solar farm?
She said she was fine, didn't want me to call anybody. And then she told me that she was working with the guys that were cutting hay.
Hopefully the autopsy would provide some clarity.
And now we want to update you on an investigation we've been following closely. The state medical examiner now says Caitlyn Case died right around the time of her reported disappearance in August 2022. Cause of death is still undetermined. Her full autopsy.
The cause of death is still undetermined. So frustrating for Caitlyn's family to hear. But with only a partial skeleton to examine, the pathologist faced real challenges in determining how Caitlyn died.
And like I said to you before, they're going to plant that body when they needed to come forward. And I told you that it was going to be after there was nothing left of evidence on her.
The autopsy revealed Caitlyn's remains, what was left of them, were scattered in the field and damaged from being crushed and moved by farm equipment after her death, consistent with the hay cutting theory.
We'll never know what happened to her.
Determining foul play is harder with skeletal remains, as it requires evidence such as a knife nicking a bone or a bullet lodging in a skull, none of which was found. Still, there were remnants of clothing recovered nearby, a bra and shorts. Caitlyn's parents now put their last shred of hope in the examination of those and made a request for DNA testing. But the OSBI had no intention of conducting additional forensic analysis and informed Caitlyn's parents via email, which read in part, "There is no evidence that anyone other than Caitlyn was involved in her disappearance. Therefore, no further laboratory analysis will be conducted. And the OSBI investigation is in the process of being closed." It wasn't received well.
Something totally not right about what's going on there in that area. And there needs to be an investigation above this investigation.
Gordon says the investigation never aimed to uncover relevant evidence or actually seek justice for Caitlyn.
It's not just my child. I'm speaking for every family out there going through what I'm going through. This is not right, and something needs to be done about it.
He insists he won't allow this missing person case to become just another case closed in an area where missing persons are alarmingly common and where people, he says, seem to be getting away with murder.
I'm going to get to the bottom of it. I don't care till it takes me to the day I die.
Law enforcement may have closed the case of Caitlyn's mysterious disappearance and death, but for her parents, the case is still very much open. They reject investigators' conclusions and the secrecy under which they reach them. And they tell me they intend to continue trying to uncover what they are sure was foul play in Caitlyn's last moments of life. As for our efforts to find the truth, despite being stonewalled and denied access to vital details, the possibility of exposing the full story of Caitlyn's tragic end is still out there, contingent upon the right people coming forward. Carl, Amanda?
If you recognize anyone or have any information to help propel this case forward, you can email us at newsdesk@griffin.news.
Thanks for watching this special report, and you can join us each weeknight on News 9.
Yeah, that's just really sad, and like I said, you know what? How can this be happening all over the United States? And that's what it seems like to me. I mean, even like different cases, we have unalivings and then we have missing persons, and it seems like Ellie is on this cover up thing, and it's like that everywhere. It's kind of freaky. Anyway, I thought I would share that story with you. It's a very good one. And yeah, a very good one, but a very sad one. I'm kind of speechless when it comes to this because it's happening everywhere. And when you know, we've been involved in the Kohlberger case for how long? And this has got Ellie's fingerprints all over it, in my opinion. It just does. Anyway, that's Java time for the day. And I usually don't like to get too sad or like emotional shows, but sometimes, you know, you run across something and you just know that it has to get out. It has to get out there. Thank you, Carla. Yeah. And I thank you all for the ones that were here and Java, right? Yeah. All right. Well, I love you guys, and I hope you all have a good day today. And Rory is on tonight with special guest Bubbly. Bubbly Waters is going to be on Rory's for the first time tonight. So, and I'll be there, and it's going to be a fun night. So, and that's at 6 p.m. My time, and 4 p.m. Rory's time. Is it called Pacific? I think that's what it is, isn't it? I don't know. Rory and Bubbly, I know it's going to be good. It's going to be really good. So, yeah. Anyway, I thank you all, and you all have a great day. And, you know, until next time, it's rock and roll. If I can figure out what to play, I don't know what it's. In morning times, I don't like to get too rocky because it's morning. You know what I mean? I like things that are a little bit mellow. Yeah, here we go. I love you guys. Take care.
Spend my days with a woman unkind, smoke my stuff and drink all my wine. Made up my mind to make a new start, going to California with a naked in my heart. Someone told me there's a girl out there with love in her eyes and flowers in her hair. big jet plane. Never let them tell you they're all the same. The sea was red and the sky was gray. Wondered how tomorrow could ever follow today. The canyons and the mountains start to tremble and shake. Children of the sun begin to awake. It seems that the wrath of the gods got a punch on the nose, and it's starting to flow. I think I might be sinking. Throw me a line if I reach it in time. Meet you up there where the path runs straight and high. To find a queen without a king. They say she plays the guitar and cries.